public right-of-way only, so.
Councilmember Edberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I don't know what to think about charges. I'm open to the conversation.
I don't like it.
But I do think, so whack and sack becomes a part of that conversation at some point, I suspect. So folks who are going to do that are going to be subject, I suspect, to significantly higher costs. And they will pay something for that. So it's not like they're getting off free, I don't think. I'd like to understand where the Met Council comes down on those kinds of considerations. And my sense is that actually a building that generates, so the value of a business, the value of a property is related in part to what kind of business it generates, how many dollars it generates. That's a standard form of business valuation. And whether that, my assumption is that actually would get capitalized into the value of the business and subject that business to a higher property tax because of the imputed increased value of the business. And so therefore there is a cost and a charge. Now, all of that is just assumption and surmise. So let's study and try and figure out which of those do apply, which ones don't, and if so, in relatively what kind of quantities. And we can go learning. That would be fine.
On the fees, for purpose of where we're at now, I'd want to see what other cities are doing. I'm happy to be part of the discussion. I think we should air it out. I tend to lean on the side of I agree. If you have a more desirable space in front of you, and I'm making the same assumptions you are, Councilmember Edberg, you paid more for it. It's assessed at a higher rate, and that's the fee. That's the amount that you're paying. A nominal fee, we'll keep an open mind about that, but I do tend to err on that side, and kind of what you had said, Councilmember Walsh, it's there likely is a higher value to that, and it's reflected through their property taxes, so that's their contribution. Anyone else have any more comments on this?
One more note, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
Clear separation of pandemic, that was pandemic. This is back to normal. So that, and we need to do exactly what we're doing.
So for city staff, I think you have your marching orders, yes, to kind of all the bullet points. Let's move forward. Let's research it. Let's see what other cities are doing, and I think some kind of proposal, and we'll continue the further discussion. But I think we're headed in the right direction, and if we can get this done, it'll ultimately be a good thing for the businesses of White Bear. Councilmember Edwards.
Yeah, I'm sorry. One more. So in the interim, do our existing relationships and approvals that were granted by council and by staff, and to the best of my knowledge, since they were that authority, my recollection is that it was granted by council, it should be revoked by council, not by administrative action, that until we make a decision to the contrary, that do those existing relationships remain in place and available until such time that we, with reasonable notice, say, you're done. We've changed to a new world. Anyway, what's our administrative interpretation of the existing activities?
Yeah, that's a fair point. I'll tell you where I'm thinking with that. To me, I see a distinction between those long-standing kind of legacy patio areas and those that were specifically carved out in the last 2 years for the pandemic. And I think we all have a pretty good sense of what that was, without naming any specific businesses, those that have been there for a long time and those that literally built kind of makeshift things for the pandemic. I see those as two different things, and I think for the most part, the ones that we're talking about that were kind of makeshift for the pandemic were the ones that were encroaching on parking spaces. So I don't know, and maybe we need some kind of legal interpretation for what our latitude is here. But it seems to me that if the council approved it, then it's in place. But I don't know, the devil's in the details. Were those approvals on an annual basis? Was it perpetual?
I believe that was a temporary authorization for the pandemic.
Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor and council, I haven't talked to staff about this, so I'm just working from original, having been the person who wrote the resolution. It was it was meant to grant regulatory flexibility in a number of different ways to acknowledge the fact that when restaurants were allowed to reopen, as we all recall, they were largely outside and were limited exclusively outside. So the whole idea was during the pandemic, in order to respond to these restrictions, it was the idea of staff would have some flexibility to allow this. Frankly, it was a somewhat made-up thing. There's nothing in law that says you can grant regulatory flexibility. But given the circumstances, we just said, I think we can do it. We're just going to do it because we need the businesses to have this flexibility so they can, hopefully tread water during this challenging time. So, yes, it was a limited, like I said, kind of, we took a flyer on it. A number of other communities did too. That ones I represent and others said, yeah, let's do it. This is what needs to be done given this emergency. So, given that whole context, it really was limited to that. And now that the restrictions have gone away, I would discourage further use of that flexibility. That's not to speak of the ones that are longstanding prior to that. I'm just saying that regulatory flexibility resolution really was tied towards the pandemic and the limitations that were associated with it.
Okay.
I have a question, I think.
So I'm not going to try and play lawyer without a JD. If the resolution says that, then let us abide by what's in the resolution.
Right.
If the resolution didn't say that, I think that requires a slightly different interpretation. So we should bind ourselves by whatever we said, and I don't remember. So going back and researching that. I did think of one other item. We should consider seasonality, especially for sidewalk use, and whether between the end of February or the end of March and the end of October or something. So as how we think about sidewalk availability.
Mayor, if I may offer a point of clarification on those temporary approvals, they were issued on an annual basis and they were time limited. We had separate applications for both years, so they wouldn't carry forward beyond the period, which was the end of or middle of last October.
Okay.
Sure.
That's helpful. All right. Thank you. Moving on to item 10A, quarterly community development reports. Ms. Crow.
Thank you, Mayor. In your packet is your first quarterly community development report. So I'll ask if you have any questions, but I do want to just call out a few things in the report. It has been a very busy year so far with a lot of changes for community development. The first page of your report is the land use activity, and in March alone, they had about 109 permits, questions, inquiries, meetings, et cetera. That's a lot with the absence of a community development director. On page 2, you have your building permit data, and I just want to call out 3 specific permits in this report. So the first would be the White Bear Lake North Campus mechanical permit. That is a valuation for $15 million, and that's a four-year project. So that's where you're seeing that HVAC over $15 million value there. The Level Up Academy Storm Shelter Addition and Renovation, that valuation for that project is $6 million. White Bear Lake North Campus Fire Suppression Permit, that valuation, that permit is $1,430,000. So basically what I'm telling you is we have a record year already. Those are very large projects that make up over $22 million of the total valuation for this first quarter in 2022. And then on the back you have we have our code enforcement violations by ward. The line where you see complaints, so at the far right, it says 22. I just want to call it, that's the total, the grand total of all those added together. We'll have that called out a little bit differently, so that's a little bit easier for you to understand going forward. So It's been a very busy first quarter for community development, and we have several community development staff here today. If you have any questions on any of these, anything in this report.
Councilmember Jones.
I do like that. Thank you for the new look. I like the permit evaluation. It would be, would it be difficult or unnecessary? I don't know, to divide that up. I look at evaluation of what a non-tax-paying building would be versus a one that will generate taxes, like the
Sure.
high school. I think those
Sure.
are two different
Yeah.
things.
Okay. Yep, we can take a look at that.
Very good snapshot. Thank you.
All right, good. Yeah.
Yeah, but the valuation of 15 million, that's not, you know.
I'll keep the money now, thank you.
Keep going? All right. Also in your packet is a flyer for the Phase 2 extension of the Bruce Vento Trail. There will be a community meeting on Thursday, April 21st from 5 to 7 p.m. here at City Hall. Should anybody wish to attend that, we will also put that on our social media sites. And then lastly, on April 21st at 1 p.m., there will be a groundbreaking for the Rooney Farm / Eco Woods project development at 1800 County Road E. If anyone is interested in attending that, please let me know and we can coordinate. That's all I have.
Council, any other questions from Mr. Crawford? Councilmember Edberg.
Did we have an Easter egg hunt recently?
I'm not sure if we had it recently, but we did create a new event. The police department created an Easter egg hunt. It was free, asking people to pre-register, and we had 100 slots, and that registration filled up in 45 minutes. So, yeah.
All right, with that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion is second. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. We're adjourned. Good thing we bet.